The Paris Agreement, French, L'Accord de Paris, is an agreement within the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, on climate change mitigation, adaptation, and finance, signed in 2016. The agreement's language was negotiated by representatives of 196 state parties at the 21st Conference of the Parties of the UNFCCC in Bourget, near Paris, France, and adopted by consensus on December 12, 2015. As of February 2021, 191 members of the UNFCCC are parties to the agreement. Of the 7 UNFCCC member states which have never ratified the agreement, the only major emitters are Iran, Turkey, and Iraq. The agreement was part of a process dating back to the 1992 Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, when countries initially joined the international treaty called the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Seeing the need to strengthen emission reductions, in 1997, countries adopted the Kyoto Protocol. That protocol legally bound developed countries to emission reduction targets. However, the agreement was widely believed to be ineffective because the world's 2 top carbon dioxide emitting countries, China and the United States, chose not to participate. China, a developing country, was not bound by the Kyoto Protocol, and many U.S. government officials used this fact to justify U.S. non-participation. At the 18th Conference of the Parties, COP18, held in Doha, Qatar, in 2012, delegates agreed to extend the Kyoto Protocol until 2020. They also reaffirmed their pledge from COP17, which had been held in Durban, South Africa, in 2011, to create a new, comprehensive, legally binding climate treaty by 2015 that would require all countries, including major carbon emitters not abiding by the Kyoto Protocol, to limit and reduce their emissions of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. The Paris Agreement's long-term temperature goal is to keep the increase in global average temperature to well below 2 degrees Celsius, 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, above pre-industrial levels, and to pursue efforts to limit the increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius, 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit, recognizing that this would substantially reduce the risks and impacts of climate change. This should be done by reducing emissions as soon as possible, in order to achieve a balance between anthropogenic emissions by sources and removals by sinks of greenhouse gases in the second half of the 21st century. 7. It also aims to increase the ability of parties to adapt to the adverse impacts of climate change, and make finance flows consistent with a pathway towards low greenhouse gas emissions and climate-resilient development. Under the Paris Agreement, each country must determine, plan, and regularly report on the contribution that it undertakes to mitigate global warming. No mechanism forces a country to set a specific emissions target by a specific date, but each target should go beyond previously set targets. The aim of the agreement is to decrease global warming described in its Article 2, enhancing the implementation of the UNFCCC through a. Holding the increase in the global average temperature to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, recognizing that this would significantly reduce the risks and impacts of climate change. b. Increasing the ability to adapt to the adverse impacts of climate change and foster climate resilience and low greenhouse gas emissions development, in a manner that does not threaten food production. c. Making finance flows consistent with a pathway towards low greenhouse gas emissions and climate-resilient development. This strategy involved energy and climate policy, including the so-called 20/20/20 targets, namely the reduction of carbon dioxide, CO2, emissions by 20%, the increase of renewable energies market share to 20%, and a 20% increase in energy efficiency. Countries furthermore aim to reach global peaking of greenhouse gas emissions as soon as possible. The agreement has been described as an incentive for and driver of fossil fuel divestment. The Paris Deal is the world's first comprehensive climate agreement. But less than 2 years later, then-President Donald Trump put that future in jeopardy by announcing his plan to withdraw the United States from the accord, a step that became official on November 4, 2020, as part of a larger effort to dismantle decades of U.S. environmental policy. At present, President Biden's Day 1 executive order, the United States officially rejoined the landmark Paris Agreement on February 19, 2021, positioning the country to once again be part of the global climate solution.